Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast. OneD&D to rule them all, OneD&D to find them, OneD&D to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them. My name is Martin O'Dwyer, and I'll be your host for today's podcast. And joining me, as always, is your co-host, Conor O'Brien. How are you doing, Conor? Did you like my intro?
And they call it a mine.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew it was either going to be that one or it was going to be the shall I get you a box. I knew it was going to be one of those two.
Or second breakfast.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Levin's luncheon. I don't think he knows what those either, Pep.
I never get over like Jacob Buds has that video, like XP Level 3 has that video where they he's like watching Lord of the Rings with me and he's pointing out all the stuff that fans always point out. But I think you missed it. I haven't watched the video in a while. There's one I never get tired of pointing out, and it's that scene where Pippin is asking about second breakfast, and an apple comes over and Merry catches his, and he goes, oh, and he walks on. And the second one hits Pippin in the face and falls, but it hits him and falls to his right. And then in his left hand, he produces an apple. And it's like you were clearly holding that out of shot. And then when the apple hits you, you didn't need to catch it. You just had to hold that up. But if you look at it next time, it so clearly goes bang and then down here. And then he raises the apple on this side.
Do you know what? In all the years and all the times I've watched this trilogy, and as a massive a Tolkien fan as I am, that is my first time realising that.
Every time I watch the movies, either I will notice something different or Tara will ask a question and I'll be like, oh, do you know, I actually don't know, and we'll Google it then. Like last night we were asking about why it canonically it's not really true, but for the sake of the movies, in The Hobbit, Thranduil points out that he wouldn't let Legolas marry a lowly Sylvan elf. And we were like, what's the difference? What's the difference if a Sylvan elf? Is she not a wood elf like Legolas is? And she is, but Legolas's father and Thranduil's father are Sindarin elves, which are like a different type of elf. And they came to live. They moved into Mirkwood and Greenwood as well. Was it Greenwood first, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Greenwood first, and then became Mirkwood.
And it became Mirkwood, and they moved in there, and they kind of integrated themselves into Sylvan society and took on the kind of attributes of that culture and stuff like that. So Legolas would have been raised a Sylvan / woodland elf. But also there's a whole thing, like I'm pretty sure there's lines in the canon in Tolkien's writings where the Sindarin elves actively wanted to integrate in the culture. You know, it's not like they looked down on the culture of the Sylvans. They actively wanted to be part of it. So there's really no canonical reason why Thranduil would be like, oh, I look down on you small Sylvan elves and your pitiful culture or something like that.
Do you know what the reason is?
I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but go on.
Because the Hobbit movies aren't great. And I'm being very kind there.
You're being exceptionally kind, because I told you like 2 weeks ago that myself and Tara were rewatching them, and you went on an escapade in our group chat.
I was not in a good mood that day anyway. And like as soon as you said it, do you know what played in my head? The bit where Legolas runs up the falling bricks. That's what played in my head. I went, boom. And I love Legolas. Legolas is awesome. That
Legolas
bothers me.
But you know what I find, actually? Now,
my scorching hot take that the Hobbit movies aren't as good as the original trilogy.
No, to be fair, they are not. But it's a weird thing, okay? People, when it comes to Star Wars, for example, they criticize and rip apart the prequels and the sequel trilogy, and they say this is terrible and that's terrible. But if you go back and watch the originals, they are far from perfect movies. You might really enjoy them, but they are far from perfect movies. Luke kisses his sister in the second one, and in the third one they're like, we're siblings, and they just kind of forget about the kiss and they gloss over it, and it's like no one ever joke about it.
If you had like unknowingly kissed your sister and then found out, you'd want to just forget about that for the rest of your life as well.
But like they kind of just gloss over it, and no one ever points out that massive flaw in the continuity where they clearly hadn't planned ahead to say that Luke and Leia were siblings, and instead they wanted to continue that supposed love triangle of Han and Luke and Leia, whatever.
Yeah.
And then likewise, there's a similar thing where like people tend to glorify the Lord of the Rings films, and they are amazing, but they're not flawless either, because when you think about Legolas doing some of the stunts he does in The Hobbit, they're like if those stunts are like an 11 out of 10 or whatever, and he's overshooting the mark, Then some of the shit he does in the Lord of the Rings movies is just as goofy. It's like a 10. He's at the line of how goofy he can be before it becomes ridiculous.
Okay,
Like,
but the stunt guy did actually surf that shield down the stairs.
oh, did he?
He
That's
did.
pretty cool.
He actually did that. They had a wire on him for safety, but like he wasn't being suspended. He actually surfed that shield down the stairs.
But that's what I'm saying though. I mean, people look at the movies and they're like, "Oh, it's so the Lord of the Rings is so good, and Legolas is such a badass." But then Legolas does something that's only slightly more or less probable.
Do you know
now, don't get me
so,
wrong, the gravity thing and the folly works is way over the top. But a bunch of other stuff he does is well within the range of what Legolas could have done in the Lord of the Rings.
He like if you watch the extended editions, he literally walks on top of the snow.
Yeah.
Going over Caradhras, and like that's just cool. I just like that. That's him being like otherworldly.
If you play Lego Lord of the Rings, there's some segments where walking through deep snow slows your character. It does not slow Legolas. He walks on the surface.
I would have imagined he wouldn't have been in that game.
Lego Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Because it's Legolas. I hate you so much. I'm just glad I caught it. I'm just glad I caught that.
So am I, honestly, because if I had to explain that joke, you know, like explaining a joke and dissecting a frog are like the same thing in that like you understand it better, but the frog is dead.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, just talking about the ridiculous stuff in the original. I'm gonna give a point towards you for the original trilogy, and it's something I always notice whenever I watch someone do, like watching Lord of the Rings for the first time, when you get to Two Towers, and the wargs attack, and Legolas is like wargs, and he starts like sniping them with the bow, and then all the horsemen run up behind him, and he grabs on and he swings this way up around the horse, then goes like flattens in the air and goes the entire other way around over Gimli's head, and somehow goes boom down in front of him.
Yeah.
Makes
no sense. Just completely ignoring physics.
Yeah, like momentum doesn't work that way, friend. But weirdly, no problem at all with him climbing arrow. Actually, the arrow climbing makes sense in context of walking on top of the snow, because if he's light enough to walk on top of snow, he could.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
but like the surfing down. So can he? But the the surfing down the Mummock Hills trunk and off at the end.
Yeah.
Very cool, hilarious. Like, just ridiculous.
Very cool, hilarious. Probably belonged in Jungle Book and not in Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Oh god. And the reason I quoted that is because today we're going to talk about OneD&D, which when I told someone, I was away for the weekend and was talking to someone I work with who also plays a lot of D&D and really enjoys it. And when I told him, it was like, oh yeah, you know, which I said, oh, do you hear about the kind of 6e 5.5 stuff? And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, OneD&D it's called. He was like, ooh, is that what it's going to be called? Like OneD&D? I was like, well, no, it's probably going to be like 6e or 5.5, because if you remember, 5e was originally called D&D Next.
It was actually.
Yeah. That's
they may come up with something like that. Honestly, I don't think OneD&D is that bad. I think it's better than when they named Xbox One, because I always thought that was such a bad name.
No, do you know what was the worst name? The Xbox One X.
Oh yeah, oh god,
that was horrendous. But we'll stop.
You gotta love Sony just sticking to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like.
Oh my god! And the death blow they got in them in the last generation when there was all the controversy about sharing games on the Xbox, and Sony put out like a 30-second video how to share a game on the PlayStation, and it was like the guy who runs Sony just handing a game to another guy.
He's like, when you want to share a game with a friend, just do this.
That was so good.
That was one of, like, you know for a fact that was not like, because obviously their presentations would have been approved like months in advance. You know that wasn't, and just backstage they saw the Xbox presentation and they were like, we can totally rip them apart here.
I can imagine the smile on the face of the marketing guy who came up with that when it was approved. Like,
yeah, oh man, so funny.
So good. So yeah, we had the big announcement during the week that basically the next generation of D&D is being brought out piece by piece now. So they announced a lot of really cool stuff. A bunch of books. There's an entire Giants book coming out next year, which I'm very excited for. Yeah. Which I kind of should have really seen coming, really, with the giant options in Art Arcana, but somehow didn't.
Yeah, we actually probably.
We did a whole episode on that, and we still didn't. And we didn't once go, Jesus, maybe they're doing the Giants book.
To be fair, we did a whole episode on that and took a break for a month and a half. So
that's very true.
Yeah, I honestly, until you mentioned it just now, I completely forgot those giant options existed.
Yeah, go watch your video on giant options. It's really good. But yeah, we've got the giant options. We've got the Dragonlance book we all kind of knew about, but the cover is sick. The Death Knight cover.
The alt cover is so cool, man.
So I got just a little sensitive about death knights recently though from events in our own game.
Last week I had the guys in our home game fight. They weren't death knights but I used the death knight as a stat block for these 4 homebrew knights, and I had the lads fighting 4 basically equivalent death knights in a battle, and it was a 9-round fight, by the way. That took the entire night, entire session.
And that was till like midnight. That was like we started playing like half 7, quarter 8. Yeah, around that time till about half 12. And holy God, he beat my ass. Oh my God, that one guy I was 1-1 and just the first time you rolled and it was like, yeah, you take 12 half to 6 bludgeoning. I was like, okay, and I was waiting for like maybe like 2 or 3d6, and you're like, and 26 points of thunder, and I was like, what? Holy shit! But yeah,
I think he had like 8 or 4d8. No, he wasn't. It was like 4d12 or something like that. It was really, really beefy. It was 2d6 for his maul, for his regular maul, and then it was like 4d12 or something for his thunder damage on top of that. But I calculated each of them. So each of the 4 knights does approximately the same damage, just spread out over different attacks. One of the knights has 5 attacks, but she doesn't hit very hard, but she hits 5 times. Yeah. And this guy only hits twice, but each attack will absolutely wreck you.
It absolutely did, yeah. That was really cool though, because I got to drop unconscious, and then Gavin got to use Blood Curse of the Fallen Puppet to make me attack him once, and we killed him.
Yeah,
that was really cool, and I really liked that.
Awesome.
Blood Hunters, God, I gotta play a Blood Hunter soon. I might be. Depending on how
we are teetering on the edge of a TPK at the end of that session. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen right now. I'm at a loss here.
I'm so scared.
The steering wheel has come away from the shaft, and I have no control of the vehicle anymore.
I'm so scared. Like I was like, I really like this character in the story, and I wanted to finish the story, and oh god. And I was there like trying to make new characters and stuff, and my brain was just like screaming at me, going, "What have you done? What have you done?" Oh god, sorry, Death Knight's entire tangent there. But yeah, we've our Kryn book. We have that. They announced one thing I'm really excited about is the virtual tabletop, the D&D proprietary virtual tabletop in the Unreal Engine. Like
that's substantial.
Oh my god,
that's really
that's
big.
insane. And I love and from what they've kind of said, they've not released a ton of information about it, but what they've said is that like we'll have like, I think they're going to do like pre-built sets for that stuff, and then like you can break that apart and kind of make up your own, very much like the kind of 3D maps that I have there, where you can kind of modularly break it together and it looks really cool, and it's got like lighting effects and all this kind of crazy stuff.
It kind of sounded when they were describing it like the pre-made sets will be ones that are designed specifically for published adventures, because they said going forward, now that they own D&D Beyond, because the whole reason that you couldn't just buy a book from Wizards and then get a promo code to get the digital copy on D&D Beyond is because previously they were separate companies.
Yeah.
Now D&D or Wizards have acquired D&D Beyond, and because it's by the same ownership, they can probably introduce a model going forward where you can buy the physical, the digital, or the physical and digital together, and you'd have both a physical copy sent to you or whatever, and a copy on your D&D Beyond as well. And it seems like what they want to do is, with adventures going forward, the maps will probably be pre-made, and you'll be like, yeah, you want to run this on a digital on the VTT? Excellent, yeah, here we go. It's already pre-made. You don't have to like try to recreate this picture from the book. But then you can go in and you can customize it or tear it apart and rebuild it in a different way and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's all very, very, very exciting. I'm curious how much like uptake the VTT will get, but like I'd imagine quite a lot, considering a lot of people do just play it through like Discord or over Roll20 or something like that. Bet Roll20 are terrified.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's an aspect of it where like if you're invested to a certain degree in one platform, you're not going to go changing. Like, you know, it's like if you own an iPhone and an iPad and all these other Apple accessories, you're probably not going to go changing to Samsung just because the new phone they have is really good, because you'd have to redo your entire ecosystem. Likewise, if you've invested a lot of money in Roll20 to buy tokens and have all those premium tokens and stuff, or custom make maps that you use in your campaign, you're probably not going to jump ship unless
it's really good.
Unless it's really good. And we'll see. I mean, honestly, my concern is that it looks really good, how expensive is that going to be?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm curious about that, and I'm curious how cost is going to work with the physical digital bundles, because they did say they were going to do the physical digital bundles, and like a D&D book isn't cheap. Like they like I was
No.
like Spelljammer there is like $49.99, and that like I think it's around the same in euros, which is not how that conversion rate should go.
Well, technically, we should be paying more at the moment, right? Because the dollar is ahead of the euro, I think, right now.
Crap, sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking of about 6 months ago, and also for all of time.
Yeah, for every other time.
Because the euro has always been ahead of the dollar up until recently.
Yeah.
But no, there's that, and then like on top of that, then if we buy them physically in our local store, because they're imported to Ireland, there's a markup on them. So usually paying like 60 odd quid.
It's if you want a physical book, it's probably about 50-60 quid easy.
Yeah.
Which like that for reference about the same price as like a AAA like physical copy video game.
Yeah. Which, you know, I mean, I don't mind. And also, like, I like supporting our local store and stuff like that. They're always really handy. Our local store is like, our local store does not have a functional cash register. It's essentially a drawer. And when they want to like record their sales, they literally go, yeah, what are you buying? Cool. And they check the code, and they write the code and the name in the book, Pt.1, and then they like take your money and they give you your change. But like that's their way of recording inventory. Our local game store is old school, but they are very helpful inside and very nice.
Dude, do you know what's hilarious actually? Because I was waiting. I was in town recently. I was waiting to get a lift and get picked up in town and to go home. And like I was standing outside our local game shop. And I was just there, and I just turned around and like looked in the window, because they always have like a display window set up, but like usually like Warhammer figs or something, because they have like loads of those, and like kind of all the other stuff. And I was just like looking, I'm like, oh yeah, they're cool. While I was waiting to get picked up, and like legitimately, dude opened the front door, walked out. I was like, you alright there? Is you anything? Do you need any help or anything, or do you want to have a look? And I was like, I'm okay, dude. I'm not even in the shop, man. Like that's impressive customer service, but I'm not. I'm fine. Like I'm not even in the shop.
I know who you're talking about, and he's a sound dude.
Different guy.
Oh really?
Yeah. Different guy.
Oh no way. Okay, I thought you were talking about the owner. Like
no, not him. No, different guy. But the owner is really nice. It's actually a really nice shop. It's just very old school.
It is.
It's fun. It's
very old school. They don't have card machines or anything But again, if you go in and you need something, if they don't have it, he'll take your name. He'll order it in for you. He's very good like that. So
they're awesome. Yeah, they're actually pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it's a cool place to hang out as well, because when they're not like obviously it's a shop for that, but they have a big table in the middle, and anytime you walk in, you'll either find people playing a game or 3 or 4 people sitting down, all painting minis, just chatting to each other as well.
It's a very nice place to spend like about half an hour while you're just kind of looking through books and stuff, and if there's people there you can have a chat and stuff. Yeah, and they do like painting classes and stuff like that, and obviously they run games and stuff, and they do
run games as well.
The usual like game shop stuff like Friday Night Magic and all that kind of stuff. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Actually, do you remember that we're like, because this all comes from the OneD&D live stream that happened on Thursday, and did you watch that?
I kind of mostly got like a couple of extra videos and highlights and stuff like that, and articles.
I like had it on in the background while I was finishing the end of my shift and work, and like I remember at one point I was like looking at this screen doing work stuff, and then like I looked over, and like they're like, we're gonna show you a trailer for Friday Night Magic with Post Malone. And it was like literally Post Malone wandered in with a bunch of lads, and he's there like shuffling, like riffle shuffling cards like a pro. And Post Malone really loves magic, which is just something I never thought I'd hear.
Post Malone's a cool dude. He what's that guy? Is it Jay's PCs or?
Linus Tech Tips?
No, it's a guy named Jay. Jay's 2 Cents is the name of the channel. And he builds PCs. He's his own business building PCs, but he's built a PC for Terry Crews, and he designed the whole thing to look like an Old Spice bottle.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
And he built one for Post Malone, and Post Malone has some signature drink he really likes, so I can't remember what it is. It's like a beer that he loves or whatever, and he designed the whole thing to look like beer, like a beer bottle.
Not like
it had like yellow
ribbon or something like that, is it?
Maybe, I can't remember.
If he feels like a guy who drink that really crappy beer.
He builds it, and then he comes and he brings it to Post Malone's apartment or whatever, and he showed it to him, and they were chatting and all that, and he was showing him all the features, and obviously he puts in all these cool water cool features and lighting effects and stuff like that on it, and he's like, oh yeah, we got this glass custom etched for you, and it's got like Post Malone or what, and the name of the beer or something on it like that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's pure into like gaming and stuff like that, so I'm not totally surprised they'd be into magic as well.
Yeah, I guess kind of like judging the book by its cover there, considering like all the face tattoos and being like a famous rapper and stuff.
Yeah.
Me judging someone for having tattoos is a bit hypocritical. Like,
Yeah. Just a smidge.
just a smidge. But yeah, to a bit more on topic. Today we're gonna have a bit of a deeper chat about some of the newer playtest material that was announced, because the live stream was awesome and fun, and lots of cool stuff is confirmed. Including, well, no, Spelljammer was already confirmed. But including that, they announced like the new playtest material, and they put out the first of their, what we're both assuming is going to be a fairly lengthy series of Unearthed Arcanas.
They said about a year to a year and a half of monthly, so you're looking at about 12 to 18 Unearthed Arcanas.
I didn't realize it was going to be. I must have missed that. Didn't realize it was going to be monthly. I thought it was going to be.
I watched the video with Todd Kenrick and Crawford.
I'm so happy Todd Kenrick is back doing that stuff for D&D Beyond, because he's so good at it.
He really is, and like it's fun because he's excited. He's not just asking questions; he's excited about the stuff they're talking about.
And he conveys.
But yeah, Crawford mentioned that they'll have about a year to a year and a half's worth of stuff that will bring them basically into the start of 24, and at some point in 24, this new player's handbook, and I think we're getting 3 new books. I think we're getting new Dungeon Masters and new player's handbook, and maybe a new monster manual. Don't quote me on that last one though. I'm not sure.
I'd imagine
but that is we're looking at about like
that they just like fold everything into, like it's gonna be like this back and thick, like, but it'll be a big monster manual. It's a.
Well, it probably won't step on Mordenkainen's, because Mordenkainen's is essentially Xanathar's, not Xanathar's, Mordenkainen's other book and Volo's together.
Mordenkainen's. There's like, oh whoops, apologies folks for if you heard a Facebook pop there. I meant to close that. I usually close that. Apologies.
You're good. But yeah, so I mean that's already those 2 books in combination, and updated with the new way they're doing monsters as well.
Yeah.
So if we get a new monster manual, it'll probably have updated stat blocks for each of the monsters that are already in that book.
Yeah, it's cool actually, because I was making a character for panic reasons, and you can toggle legacy or non-legacy at the moment when you go and create. It's really cool. Like shrink everything down. Excuse me, but yes, the first of these playtest materials that they released then was the character, or like
character origins.
Character origins. Thank you. I could not get that word out. Dear God.
By Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, and Ray Winiger.
Yes, and it's quite like the Unearthed Arcana that they brought out like a while back. That was like 14 pages long. It's a big boy. It's like a 21.
This is 21 pages. It's ridiculous.
A 21 page Unearthed Arcana. And like, to be fair, a lot of it is just kind of like general text and explaining why they're doing some stuff. But there's a lot of new changes, and a lot, like, I know when we were looking at the updates from Monsters and Multiverse to like races and stuff like that for players, you're saying like a lot of races got buffs and nerfs and quality of life stuff, and like lots of really good stuff. And they
also took out sub races as well, and kind of rolled a lot of the sub races into just the base race with some optional features incorporated, and they seem to have done that here as well. Yeah,
it's very it's been super interesting, and backgrounds in particular have really changed. Like,
oh my god.
So what to do at the moment is it's called determining your origin, and so there's 3 things that kind of determine your origin at the moment as they list it. And it's your race, your background, your language. Language, definitely the least impactful of all 3, and I don't even know really why they put that there, but I can kind of get it. Like, you know, like
I feel like language was always part of something you got from your race and your background. Having that as a 3rd point almost seems arbitrary when you could just have it rolled into one of the other 2. But I mean it's there.
I say that, and like all that's rattling around in my head is that old like Irish that old Irish phrase like Tirgan Changa, Tirgan Anam. You know, a country without a language is a country without a soul.
That's a fair point. I get, but well, I mean, look, that's a fair point. Real world, I'm talking about mechanically in the game. I feel like like, you know, dignifying, or not dignifying, but making this distinctive as its own point. I feel is now they have some stuff in there, but it's honestly just more of a reiterating of what languages already were in the game.
And like, do you give like an overview of your character origins and stuff? And a lot of it is very obvious, is what I would say is kind of the way they kind of describe it. Like, oh, your creature type. Every character in a monster and monster in the game has a creature type. Was like, did we really need that to be on this 21-page document?
Well, I think that is kind of relevant just because we've seen, I think since they started doing the fairy stuff, I can't quite remember, but they started, I think it was the fairy stuff was the first one to do it, and they were like, this creature is Fae. Yeah. Its creature type is Fae. It is like, it's I don't think it qualifies as
Or
a
like
humanoid anymore.
with the
But
like with Eladrin, and they're like, you are an Eladrin, but for all effects that would affect an elf, you are considered an elf.
sort of, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
no. Do you know what? I think actually the first time they did it was the undead stuff, for Van Richten's. Now I think about it, because that came first.
Mm.
Um, and they specified that you count as undead for X, Y, and Z reason. Um, and I mean, so I think that's why, because they want to not just have every person be like, you're humanoid, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
but like, you can have distinct, um, you can be part of the different categories of creature that exist in the D&D multiverse. Which I think it makes for some interesting stuff, particularly when it comes to spells and stuff. Like certain spells affect fae, fiends, and undead and stuff like that. So that could be kind of an interesting way to shake up things in the game, because all of a sudden that fairy character who was maybe previously a human in a different campaign now can't pass into your circle of protection. What's it called?
Magic circle.
Magic circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
They
that
can't pass into that because
yeah, or if you suddenly count as an undead, that Oathbreaker Paladin's gonna hit you a lot harder.
there you go. Yeah.
But yes, it's very, very cool. They've fairly significantly shifted around the balance of power between your like racial origin and your background. Whereas previously your origin or your lineage or your race or whatever way you want to refer to it, whatever makes you feel good, that used to determine your stats. Most of the time a +2, +2 and a +1. Very rare cases a +2, +2. Now that's basically all entirely decided by your background.
Yeah, I mean, they just actually while we're on the topic there, I did think about it earlier today, and one of the things I've seen on Twitter are people actually don't like, because obviously this is a UA. It's meant to be test material, and if you don't like something or you think this needs to be tweaked or this could be better, the whole point of this is you read through it, you mark off the bits, you highlight the bits you do or don't like, and then you go to the feedback and you offer in the survey and you say, hey, I think this needs to be changed, because they're coming to us asking for our opinion. They want the community to help cultivate and design what the next iteration of Dungeons and Dragons will be.
Exactly.
And with that, a lot of people are pointing out that the use of the word race is still very problematic.
Yeah.
Which I get, because I mean, in real life, race is an artificial construct. It's not a real thing. So a lot of people suggesting heritage or lineage or ancestry as an alternative.
And they
I personally like
moved away from that word as well. Like they had made a whole thing about it when they did redo the origins, that stuff. Like they specifically went lineage, like rather than race on it.
Yeah. And so it's a bit of a weird one to kind of almost backstep a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, it's test material, so hopefully enough people will be like, hey, you missed this, and then they can go forward with whatever. I personally think that ancestry is the best option, because then what you'd have is your ancestry background class. So you got your A, B, C's.
Oh God, Connor, I didn't even see that coming. Oh my God. I do agree though. I think ancestry would be the way to go with it.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll and I mean, like this UA does have a lot of language. They're tweaking the language of D&D in terms, as in how rules and how classes and how the actual structure of the game is written. One of them, for example, this is jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
They have what's called a D20 test now.
Yes, I like that. I actually like that.
Yeah. Oh, same. Because previously, anytime that they wanted to tell you that you could do such and such a thing with an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, they would have to say attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Now they're just grouping all them, and that's called a D20 check or D20 test. Sorry.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and not recycling, but reinventing the language a little bit could definitely be a bit of a fresh coat of paint on the game.
Totally. And with stuff like that, I think you can really tell that they've learned from the success of 5e, and you can see where they've seen like streamlined stuff, and like it's just so much easier to explain as well. Like anytime you roll a d20, you can do this now, because like I have abilities with log that are like you can give advantage or disadvantage on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, and every time you have to I get advantage or disadvantage on attack roll, and it's a mouthful. Like Jesus.
Yeah. It's one of those things I've said so much that I just kind of rattle it off as almost as like one continuous word. It's just one phrase that just comes pairs.
It's like learning prayers as a child or something. Just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. When the indoctrination kicked in.
Oh God. Yeah.
So yeah, we have creature type. We have size, which is pretty normal. They have included, and we'll get onto it in a bit with the race when we talk about the updates to the ancestries or races, whatever we're calling them. In that some of the races now include a small option, not just halflings and gnomes or other races like tieflings and humans and stuff. Yeah, exactly. because, as Crawford pointed out in that video I was watching, in real life there are people who are, you know, size medium and size small. They're different size people, so they offer that to you now. And I don't think that, like, I don't think if anyone wanted to play a smaller person in their D&D game as an elf, I would find it hard to believe that any halfway decent DM would deny that to you. I think you would be fine, but it's also nice to show that in the book that is represented and that the option is there in writing, you know?
Yeah, there was one thing that they actually really emphasized in the live stream as well when they were talking about the stuff, and it's they want anyone to be able to see themselves in D&D. Like, you see themselves in the fantasy, in the adventure. And, like, yeah, if you, like, if a player came to me and was like, I want to play like a 3 foot tall human, I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like, it's not an issue. Like gnomes and stuff exist. Like, where's that a problem? Like,
exactly. We also have speed. Nothing's really changed there. It functions as it has. Lifespan is kind of returned, because previously they were kind of, I felt like they were weirdly dancing around lifespans or whatever for creatures, because they would be like, they'd say when this new creature came out, like lifespan, and it'd be like, this creature lives approximately the same length of time as any other humanoid creature in your world or in fantasy world. And I'm like, that always seems like a bit of a cop out, because I feel like, well, especially when it came to like elves and dwarves, because I'm like, elves and dwarves, we know because of Tolkien kind of solidified that in the concrete foundations of what fantasy is, that they live longer, that they are much slower aging creatures than humans, and that's part of the fantasy.
Yeah, that even became like a story point towards the end of our first campaign, because most of the party we had 3 elves and a dwarf, and then we had a dragonborn. So like 90% of the party is going to live for like several hundred years, and then the dragonborn lives for like 50.
Oh yeah, and like he was already like 20 something.
Yeah,
50 odd years left.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of time left. Meanwhile, I was like an 85-year-old elf who's like, I'm basically barely an adult.
Yeah, and that was the thing as well, because at one point in that campaign you also went forward in time, but you went forward a few hundred years, but all your characters had been killed off or disappeared, and the daughter of one of the party was now about 200 or 300 years old as an elf, but she was still around to explain, my mother did this before she died, and she told me to tell you guys this thing and all this kind of stuff. So
that was very cool. That's still one of my favorite.
I think part of the fantasy thing is elves should absolutely live to be 700-800 years old, and dwarves absolutely live to be 400 or 500 years old. Another classification here is special traits, but that's just more or less the abilities you get from your ancestry, whether it be a dragonborn breathing fire or
your elven trance.
Your elven trance ability, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And backgrounds. Sorry, there's another clarification in here for backgrounds. So basically, you have the backgrounds now are kind of made up of like 6 parts. Yeah. Which is ability scores. So backgrounds, your ability scores now tied to your backgrounds, which I feel again makes sense. They were previously tied to your ancestry. Yeah. Now they are tied. Then they were tied to nothing. They were just kind of free floating, and it's just like you pick whatever ones you want. And now they're tied to your background, which to me makes the most sense, because
I think that's what it should have been from the start. But obviously, it's
realistically,
kind of dyed in the wool with fantasy that you pick like. It's in every like fantasy game. It's like, you pick the Northmen, and they have like they're very good with cold, and they're stocky, and they're strong, and it's like you got a +2 to strength, and you've like. But like realistically,
what if I want to play a Northman wizard, and then you know?
But like, realistically, that's not what like with an ability scores. What you're trying to, I guess what you're trying to represent is like your physical characteristics, and like the way like what you're capable of. But that really isn't determined by your ancestry. That's determined by like how you live your life and what you've done through your life. That has
up to the point you become an adventurer.
That has like formed you. Yeah, exactly. Like Olympic weightlifters don't become Olympic weightlifters because of their ancestry. They do that because they spend years training. Like
exactly. Anyways, skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, languages. Skip over 1. Equipment. All the equipment now. They mentioned this in the video. All the equipment is equally valued. So certain backgrounds don't have more expensive equipment than another. They took the exact same gold cost, and if you add up all the items in it, it works out the exact same across the board.
That must have been fun job to do.
Yeah, just on a spreadsheet. Yeah. But then the big one here is that feats. Everyone gets 1 first level feat. First level, because feats now have level and prerequisite requirements. But everyone gets 1 first level feat as part of their background. Also, there's been a restructuring with backgrounds in that they are no longer. Previously, if you read the player's handbook from 2014, my lovely faded copy here.
Oh, I actually have mine behind me as well.
Yours is almost certainly in better condition than mine. Mine is pink on the top here because the sun got at it. Yay.
Oh no, mine has. Oh jeez, there's dents all over this thing. What happened?
You rolling dice on top of it?
Do you know what? That's
like metal dice.
It's very possible. Very possible because I have big chunky by metal dice.
But yeah, they've restructured it. So previously, if you read this book, the way that backgrounds work is that they give you a whole bunch of background options, but as an alternate option, you can design a custom background. Now, the way that they're kind of approaching it is that the custom background is actually the initial or the first option, and if you want the backup or the alternate is actually picking one of the pre-made ones. Yeah. Because they want you to have more customization over your character and stuff like that, which I very much comes through with everything that's represented in this UA.
It is, and the feats you get are quite good. Like there's some they're not insignificant. Like you get stuff like tough from your backgrounds now. Like if you're
it's tough at first level one.
Tough. There's one or two of the backgrounds that I remember looking through. You get tougher. Like I think if you're like a farmer, you get tough.
I think you're right. Actually, also there's a farmer background now.
There's some really fun new ones like crafters and laborers and stuff like that. But there's also been some fairly significant changes to. I guess we'll continue to call them ancestries. I guess I think that's a good way to refer to them now.
Yeah.
So we've got the first one, human. Like they don't really change how they describe humans. You're typically like. You're everywhere and you're super adaptable and you very much make where you go your home and you bring that with you and all this kind of stuff. Which so it's all good. But their traits now, good stripe humanoid. Again, as Conor mentioned earlier, you can either be medium or small, which is awesome. 30 feet of speed and lifespan 80 years on average. That's a damn good average. And then,
look, when you live in a world where Revivify is only 300 gold pieces away,
and magic and healing.
Yeah, exactly. I've often thought about that with my characters. Like whenever Vaskeen used to shoot people with arrows just at the drop of a hat, he's like, I have cure wounds. I'll just pull it out and cure him. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I've always had a weird idea about like magical healing would change the concept of pain. Like because like there's no recovery time.
Like honestly, I could see there being gladiator fights or even like nobles dueling each other, but for blood. And it's like, yeah, you can totally stab that dude and draw first blood, not just by cutting him, but by stabbing him through the chest. And it's fine because we have clerics that wait at the sideline of a fight and they will rush in and heal him as soon as he goes down. And then, but you know you won because you had the killing blow. Only he's not dead.
You're literally describing an arena I put in my world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yes, humans also get these special traits. You get resourceful, you gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. Skillful, you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice. And versatile, you gain the skilled feat, so 3 skills, or you gain another first level feat of your choice. So if you want to make like a skill monkey character, human seems to be the way to go now.
Human bard rogue.
Oh god, man, and you have proficiency in everything.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I've a few times throughout this UA because a lot of we kind of talked before, they're moving a lot of the stuff to like proficiency bonus times a day, but certain things specifically is tied to long rests, and I think it's probably a way of gating power, I'd imagine, because like inspiration also changed.
Yes, so inspiration previously was very free floating, and I never used it because honestly I found it very difficult to judge when to award it, and like I would always award it. They advise awarding it when like a player does something fun or creative or unique.
I have a really good example actually. So in my game on Friday, Mandrai or Druid used Scry to scry on an ally NPC, and he saw him like he's basically like a privateer that is loyal to our pirate rogue. And he runs a group called the Anglers, and they're like fighting monsters in a specific area at the moment. So Mandrai scryed on him and saw him, and I was like, okay, and I assume you're relaying all this to, because it was just him and the rogue Arandir on the deck of their skyship while they were doing this. And I was like, I assume you're relaying all this to Arandir, and he goes, no, I cast control water, and I used that to like animate the scene I've just seen.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
that's
I was
very
like,
cool.
that's inspiration, because that's probably the coolest way I've ever seen someone use control water.
Yeah.
Oh, shape water it was. Sorry, shape water.
Shape one, yeah, 'cause you can make it take forms and stuff. Yeah,
It
like
was.
that's like a little hologram like you'd see in the Star Wars.
I
Popped
said
up on a
like you
table
literally
and-
just did the thing that's the scene from Shang-Chi.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, yeah. I was like, that's so cool. I was like, I just had to, because it was like, so rarely am I surprised, like, by the use of a spell by a player.
Mike, we talked about this before. Mike is a bit of a he's a rogue in real life because
Yeah.
he comes at you out of nowhere and completely takes you off guard. Because he's thinking about these things, but he never lets on that he's thinking about them. And then at a very opportune moment, he will just go, "Oh, by the way, I do this," and you're like, "Yeah, the rules say you can do that." Oh my god.
I feel I don't do that because I have an extremely strong I'm thinking face.
Yeah.
After humans, we actually get a brand new race, which is pretty cool. It's really
Oh,
interesting.
quite quickly, actually, the way inspiration works now.
Sorry, yes, please, go ahead.
So instead of being awarded that with the way it was, where it's just kind of a random thing you hand out, and I found that difficult because I'd find that the same people at a table of a group of 4 or 5 would be the ones who are being creative or trying new things, and some people are just there to play the game as it is written, and that's perfectly fine as well. But you don't feel as obligated to award those people inspiration, so you end up rewarding the same 2 or 3 people inspiration over and over, and not other people. With this, basically, anytime you roll a natural 20, for any reason in the game on a D20 test, as it's now called, you just get inspiration, and you can't have more than one. You're still limited to one. So if you have one already, it doesn't stack up. And what you can do, because Crawford said this in a video, if you have inspiration and you roll a 20 and you don't have space for another inspiration, you can pass it off to one of your allies in the party.
Oh, I haven't seen that video. I really like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool and really awesome. And like the fact that I love the way they phrased in this as well, because they said like when you roll a natural 20 in a D20 test, I'm getting used to it.
There we go. Get used to the language.
In a D20 test, when you roll a natural 20, so like because it's such an infrequent occurrence, it's a special thing. So like I like basically I like that they're making nat 20s more special, other than just everyone at the table going nat 20.
Yeah.
That's still one of my favorite things in all of D&D. But yes, we now have a new race.
We do
Ancestry,
the
Martin.
Ancestry.
The Ardling.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Do you wanna handle the Ardling, Conor?
Oh, sure. So Ardlings are a weird one for me, but
Yeah.
Ardlings are they're kind of meant to be the opposite of tieflings, and this is why they're weird to me, because the opposite of a tiefling is an Aasimar in my mind.
And like Aasimar aren't included in this. But I assume
well, they would have been Volos. I think Aasimar are
yes.
now in Mordenkainen.
And they've done a similar thing where like when you get the 3rd level as an Aasimar, you have a Celestial Revelation, and that's where you choose basically what was previously Fallen Aasimar, Scourge Aasimar, Protector Aasimar.
So just to kind of get a bit of insight into them, Ardlings are supernal beings who are either born in the upper planes or have one or more ancestors who originate there. Their bright souls shine with the light of immortal beings who call the upper planes home. The Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal, typically one of virtuous associations. Depending on the animal, the Ardling might also have soft fur, downy feathers, or supple bare skin. The Ardling celestial legacy determines the animal it resembles. An Ardling gains a measure of magical power from their ancestral legacy, as well as the ability to manifest spectral wings. An Ardling's moral and ethical outlook is determined, however, not fixed. Self-determined, not fixed by its ancestry. And the 3 types are Exalted, the fierce passions of Arborea, the heroic heart of Eastgard, and the wondrous nature of the Beastlands, call to Ardlings who have the exalted celestial legacy. Their celestial ancestors have heroic champions of the chaotic good planes. The heavenly one, blissful harmony of Arcadia, the unwavering justice of Mount Celestia, and the bucolic.
I did look this up. It's basically like saying pastoral, or like it's to do with like farming, like kind of like a farming or natural kind of pastoral areas.
The bucolic paradise of Bitopia. Touch the soul of the Ardlings who have the heavenly celestial legacy. The celestial ancestors, staunch defenders of the lawful good planes. And then the idyllic celestial legacy connects Ardlings not only to the Beastlands and Bitopia, but also to the eternal compassion of Elysium. Their ancestors are paragons of kindness who hail from the neutral planes. Essentially, it's basically you're a good creature, or rather your ancestry is related to these upper planes of good. do you take more after the chaotic, lawful, or neutral ranges? And we get a similar thing later on. We get to tieflings as well, because tieflings have a similar thing now where there's 3 types of tieflings. You can be chaotic, lawful, or neutral. Again, this is their moral and ethical outlook is self-determined, not necessarily tied to their ancestry. You could be one of these things and be completely evil as well. You might have an idyllic, kind of neutral good ancestry, but you might have gone completely off the deep end and been a completely evil character or something like that.
It's not a phase, man.
Sorry?
It's not a phase, man.
It's not a phase, man. The fringe. So they can be, they're humanoid. They can be size small or medium. Walking speed 30 feet. They live to approximately 200 years on average. As an Ardling, you have these special traits. As a bonus action, you can sprout spectral wings for a moment to fly up to a number of feet equal to your walking speed. If you are in the air at the end of your movement, you fall if nothing holds you aloft. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Oh yes, they also get some spells that they unlock at first level, third level, and fifth level.
It's your celestial legacy.
Yes. So these are tied to your legacy. So the Exalted gets Thaumaturgy at first level, Divine Favor, and then Lesser Restoration. The Heavenly one gets Light, Cure Wounds, and Zone of Truth, and the Idyllic one gets Guidance, Healing Word, and Animal Messenger. You also have resistance to radiant damage. So here's the thing, right? About and I don't want to diss on them. They're a cool enough race. I find they're a strange one that I find kind of hard to place. One, because they feel like they're kind of stepping on the toes of Aasimar an awful lot. Aasimar are also resistant to radiant. They get similar. I think they get one or two spells.
Do Aasimars not get radiant and necrotic?
They do, actually. You're right. Yeah. And then we also have this thing where they get angelic flight, and that is also a thing specifically of the protector Aasimar.
Yeah.
Protector. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, it just feels like they are kind of.
To me, they kind of just feel sort of like half Aasimar, but instead of angelic stuff, you get to pick a cool animal head.
Yeah, so here, watch 30 walking speed. You can be medium or small with the Aasimar. You have necrotic and radiant damage.
Mm.
You have dark vision as an Aasimar. You don't have dark vision as a.
Oh, do you not have dark vision as an
as an Ardling? No. Light bearer, you get the light cantrip.
Mm.
Celestial revelation is when you pick which of the three. Whether it's
you can heal.
They're not called Scourge, Protector. They just have the 3 abilities, and it's either Necrotic Shroud, Radiant Consumption, or Radiant Soul. But the Radiant Soul is essentially the 2 wings, because you sprout wings until it's an action, I believe.
Yeah, but
and you can't do it again until you finish a long rest.
I think
but they get more flight.
Yeah, the delineation would be they have actual flight, whereas this is I look at their angelic flight thing more almost like a double jump.
Oh yeah, because watch, it's actually you fly up a number of feet equal to your speed if you are in the air. Oh, so that's not even a full flight. That's just like you can fly for a single boost of speed, and then at the end of your turn or at the end of your movement, you just drop to wherever you are.
Didn't you build an eagle totem barbarian that could do that as well?
Yes, I think it's a 14th level ability for the eagle totem, but yeah, they basically, I think it's at the end of their turn they drop, but yeah, it's just a weird one. It's like they both have flight abilities, they both have resistance to radiant. It actually honestly seems like Aasimar are still substantially better.
Yeah, particularly because Aasimar can heal. They have another type of resistance. They have full flight. If you pick their
they have healing hands as well. I forgot about that as well. Yeah.
And like at level at level 20 for that's you can heal 20 hit points as an action.
Well, no, that's the old way. It's like a D4 now.
I'm looking at my an old Aasimar character sheet I made. That's right.
Oh yeah, actually yeah, it's you roll a number of D4s equal to your proficiency, which at 20th level will be 64, which is not bad. It's just
potentially 24, so it's even more.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just weird, and also like I look at some of the it has on the table while all the spells have some suggested animal types that you could have the head of. Yeah. And for Exalted, it's cat, eagle, goat, mule. For Heavenly, it's elephant, owl, pig, stork. And for Idyllic, it's bear, dog, raven, toad. But I look at this and I'm like, is the cat not just a tabaxi, like a heavenly tabaxi?
I was thinking that, and like
the eagle not like a wingless, except for like 1 or 2 turns a day. is the eagle not just an Aarakocra that can't fly?
Yeah.
And is the elephant not just one of the
Laxodon.
Loxodons or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah.
And same thing with owls for owlin. Ravens are Kenku. I don't know what else we have there. What other thing? So toads are more or less grung.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems like they're a mishmash of a lot of other stuff that doesn't really have its own place. And I already felt like the role of the celestial origin bloodline character was being fulfilled by the Aasimar, and now it seems like they have this other one. So are Aasimar just like, it's like if these are meant to be the counterpoint to the tieflings on the circle of all the planes, are the Aasimar just kind of like a side note now? They're also there. It's like, hi, oh, I'm here too, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of, I would, if you're gonna do that, I would have reversed that. It would have been like the Aasimar are the counterpart, and these guys are like a side offshoot. Because
it feels like it's a weird one. I don't dislike them, but I just feel like the Aasimar already fulfill that role. Visually, there's a lot of other races that already are anthropomorphic characters, and mechanically, the Aasimar is kind of far superior.
Yeah. But look,
Best get on that server and notify Crawford.
I always try to fill those out, particularly if it's something I'm actually interested in and I care about changing, because it does, like, in my experience with Antarcticana so far, they do seem to respond quite well and quite strongly to like enough feedback.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've been doing it for years now, so I should hope so.
This is true.
Gonna move on to the next one?
I'll jump into Dragonborn really quick there. Dragonborn doesn't change a whole bunch, I don't believe. Yeah, it's pretty similar. Yeah, it's literally the exact same almost. Except what they don't have included here are obviously the gem dragons, and that's because that is in Monsters of the Multiverse. No, that's in Fizzbands.
That's in Fizzbands. Yeah, I'm wondering, are they now, and the metallic actually as well?
Oh,
gem and metallic.
No, metallic's there.
Oh, it is. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry. It's just gem in that case.
It's just gems.
Yeah. So I am kind of yeah. I understand why the Fizzbands is its own beast. Let's keep the Fizzband stuff specifically there, and it's not like this overrides the previous one. I don't think. Because you have damage resistance to associated draconic languages. You have your breath weapon.
Yep.
Oh. Dragonborn have dark vision.
Oh, how did I miss that? Sorry, I think I'm just so used to seeing dark vision in the stat block.
In every other race.
Yeah, Dragonborn actually have dark vision now. Mike's going to be so annoyed that he spent an entire campaign making goggles of night vision.
That is... I have mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, because dragons usually have dark vision or true sight or whatever. They should probably have some form of good eyesight, but also, do we need another race with dark vision, like, at this point?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that, but I do think that them having dark vision absolutely does make sense, given that they're like reptilians, and like lots of reptilians will use like heat vision track, like predator style, almost like infrared heat tracking to like track stuff, and that goes. Oh, I'd love to kind of rule Dragonborn more like Predator. Sorry, I watched Prey recently and I cannot stop talking about it. I'm
either going to watch it tonight or I'm going to start playing the new Ratchet and Clank game.
Ooh, good choice. But yeah, the breath weapon hasn't changed. Oh, actually, one thing I didn't cop there, breath weapons are cones now.
Interesting. They were previously lines and cones, and even Fizzbands I thought gave options for either lines or cones. No?
And like secondary breath weapons as well.
But I think that was specific to. Oh. Yeah. So what's the deal here?
Because like I'm pretty sure like in Fizzbands you could do like dragon breath weapons where you could forego your damaging breath weapon and instead do like a fear breath.
Like if I look at the gem ones here, maybe not. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I'm looking at the race as they appear on D&D Beyond, or the Ancestor, I should say. Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, but like
I'm wondering, is it like Well, okay, maybe it's this way. Okay, so they're kind of this is essentially meant to supplant the 2014 Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
Um, are they maybe that I would doubt after such a short time that they're overriding or erasing what was done in Fizzbands, and more likely because realistically they planned these things years in advance, and Fizzbands only came out last year.
Yeah.
So they probably knew they were going to do this and brought Fizzbands out anyway, and now they're saying, "Hey, look, this will be the Dragonborn that appears in the book, in the new Player's Handbook. But if you want to buy Fizzbands and get these additional things as well, you can do that."
They're establishing
So maybe
a new baseline.
this is the baseline again. Yeah. Now that being said, although let me see now. Yeah. So maybe they just want to establish a new baseline, but we're still. I think I'd be very, very shocked if they turned around and said that Fizzbands was no longer.
I really don't think that's the case. I think it is much more of a they're just getting all their ducks in a row, all their Dragonborn in a row.
All the Dragonborn in a row. Yeah, okay. Move on to the next one. I'm excited for the next one.
Oh, dwarves as well.
I love dwarves.
Yeah, they got a really nice buff.
So we have a couple of types of dwarf because they've also redone Duergar in Mordenkainen's as well. And the Duergar in Mordenkainen's is beefy. Because the Duergar in Mordenkainen's has like poison resistance and psychic resistance, and it's partially psionic, and it's got a load of stuff. And this, what they've done now is instead of having three separate, again, we're kind of doing away with sub-races, so instead of three separate sub-races of dwarf, we now just have one type of dwarf, one type of Duergar. And the type of dwarf basically rolls hill and mountain into each other. And I'm okay with that because I've always found the difference between hill and mountain to be kind of arbitrary.
Arbitrary was the exact word I was going to use for that. Literally making mountains out of a molehill. Like.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we're hill dwarves. We like being this many meters up. It's like, well, we're mountain dwarves. We like being this many meters up.
And like, at what point is a hill specifically? Like, is there like hill dwarves and mountain dwarves fighting over the one piece of land? Going, this is the hill. This is a dwarf.
This is a
mountain. Like, at what?
No, look, it comes to a point. It's a mountain.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, man, the change to stone cunning I think is massive.
I will say I always liked what stone cunning was, anyway. I just think it's a fun ability to be able to go over and just go lick a stone and be like, oh yeah, this was carved about half a year ago. It's made of granite. The guy who carved it was named Bill. I always just thought that was a really fun ability, but I don't dislike what we get here. So basically, they've taken the best of dwarves and kind of rolled it onto one because, so you have dark vision, you still have dwarven resistance, so resistance to poison and advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end poison, which was updated in Mordenkainen's I think as well. They've taken one of the best features that any ancestry has, which is dwarven toughness, because it just gives you an extra hit point every level. I love this ability so much, and they've basically just made that part of the main core dwarf now. Forge wise, which is a new ability, the Divine Creator gave you an uncanny affinity to work with stone and metal. You gain tool proficiency with two of the following options of your choice: jeweler's tools, mason's tools, smith's tools, or tinker's tools. I would also like to maybe see woodworker's tools in there as well, personally, or carver's tools, but that's only because my homebrew world, the three types of dwarf that I have, which are mountain dwarves, sea dwarves, and Duergar, each correspond to a different element. The mountain dwarves are earth, the sea dwarves are wood, and the Duergar are like metal.
Oh, cool.
So that's just me, but anyway, I can homebrew that. I'm not worried about that, but I might put it in the survey though. You guys, don't forget there's a survey. So stone cunning. Previously, stone cunning was you make an intelligence history check on the origin of a stone, or you consider proficient in the history and add double your proficiency bonus on that. Now, it's a cool thing that honestly no other race has this, and I love Tremor Sense, but no other race has this, so this is really cool. As a bonus action, you gain Tremor Sense out of a range of 60 feet for 10 minutes. You must be on a stone surface or touching a surface, such a surface, to use this Tremor Sense, and the stone can be natural or worked. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, and we can all expend the uses when we finish a long rest. I'm gonna build a Tough Bay Fong.
Oh my
Dwarf
god,
monk
I didn't
character.
even think of that. I just thought like
It's
dwarves are like the anti-rogues now because you cannot hide.
yeah. Well, no, you can hide from
Oh,
stuff
wait,
from
so you can
Emerson's.
just be still. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Well, not even that. I mean, you can still move around. Like it basically, because I was looking this up the other night to get a clarification. According to Crawford, the guy who makes all the rules,
According
it
to Nerdy
is
Markopus.
yeah, Minority Markopus. He looks so alike.
It's ridiculous.
And it doesn't help that Mark Hoppus now wears glasses as
Yeah,
well. Like,
yeah.
they're even closer. But yeah, so it basically functions as another form of sight. And you can fool sight by either being in a place that's too dark where there's not enough light or something like that. In the same way you can fool tremor sense, either by not being on the ground, which would be, I guess, the sight equivalent of hiding behind something, or if you just move gently enough by rolling, you can roll a stealth check and hide on something with tremor sense as well. It just means that instead of hiding behind things or going through the darker part, you could walk directly through a very light area and just be moving very carefully, not dropping your feet too hard. And so you can still hide from it, but it just means that in a dark room, or someone could cast darkness on you. You could have your sorcerer or your wizard cast darkness on you,
and
you're just
doesn't
in
matter.
there blind but tremor sensed.
Oh my god! Just about the Taff Bayfang one you're doing. Shadow Monk.
There you go. Drop darkness.
So
bonus action.
broken.
Oh, it'd be so good.
You can literally just wander up to someone and like pummel them in the dark, and they pummelings in the dark. Oh man, that's sick.
We'll skip forward just
Yeah.
a little bit more. Okay, elves have not changed drastically. They still have their trance. They still have their Fey ancestry, keen senses. They have their dark vision. They have age, and everything else is more or less the same.
Yeah.
Weirdly, elves don't have a height variation. They can't be medium or small. They can only be medium.
That is weird, actually. Yeah.
It is.
I'd allow someone.
Oh yeah, I mean a homebrew, but it's nice to see it represented in the written content as well.
Exactly.
Then they have their elven lineage, which is basically, again, we're not doing sub-races. You choose your elven lineage, which is Drow, High Elf, or Wood Elf. They do have a thing now where they have some abilities tied to that.
It's very like the way the old tieflings were set up.
Yeah, exactly. So Wood Elf, you get a speed increase, 35 feet, which is normal. You also get Druid Craft Cantrip. You learn Long Strider, 3rd level, and Pass Without a Trace at 5th. Pass Without a Trace. Oh, what's
Such a broken spell, man.
Such a broken spell. High Elf, Prestidigitation. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can replace that cantrip with a different cantrip of the arcane spell list. We'll get onto the arcane spell list in a bit.
Yeah.
You are at 3rd level Detect Magic, at 5th level Misty Step. And the Drow, 3rd level Fairy Fire, 5th level Darkness, but oh baby, 120 feet of Dark Vision, Dancing Lights Cantrip, and no Sunlight Sensitivity.
Finally.
What the fuck?
I'll play a Drow now.
Oh my god, like it was just such a debilitating ability. It was never worth the 120 feet of Dark Vision. It was never worth it.
No, it was. Yeah.
And also, does this now work with the Ranger subclass?
The Gloomstalker?
Can you have
150 feet of Dark Vision? Oh my god.
I need to check this.
I'm so building a Drow Gloomstalker at some point.
Oh yeah, it does, because the way it's phrased here, 3rd level you gain Dark Vision at 60 feet. If you already have Dark Vision from your race, its range is increased by 30 feet. That's 150 feet of Dark Vision. That's a longbow's short range of Dark Vision.
Dude, like that's why Gloomstalker's gonna be so like longbow short range, and I have full vision in pitch black, like basically.
Yeah.
Well, not that pitch black, but
the dwarf breathed so loud we could have shot him in the dark.
oh god, how did I should.
I was watching the second half of Fellowship.
I should have seen that coming. I have the ears of a fox.
Yeah, sorry, do you want to do gnomes?
Yeah, I will. Okay. So gnomes, humanoids again. Only small size for gnomes, which does make sense because gnomes are classically small. Speed 30 feet, which is good. After they changed that fairly recently, where the smaller races no longer have races with smaller ancestries no longer have that penalty to their speed, which they
used to be 25, now they're all 30.
Yeah. I'm happy about that, to be honest. I feel like I get it because you're small, but like still, you know.
It never bothered. It was never. It would never have been like top of my list to change. But I also think that it's a nice buff.
It's a nice little quality of life thing, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lifespan 425 years on average, which is weirdly specific.
Yeah.
As a no these special traits, dark vision as per usual, gnomish cunning stays, yes, advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saves, bring out the gnome barbarians. Gnomish lineage, you're part of a gnomish lineage that grants you supernatural abilities. Choose a lineage from, you got your forest gnome, your rock gnome, and
the deep gnome, the Snurfleblin appears in Mordenkainen as like Duergar as like a standalone.
Yes, thank you very much. I completely forgot about that. So for forest gnome lineage, you know minor illusion, and you can cast speak with animals with the same trait, which is really cool. And you can cast it a number of times if you have a proficiency bonus and regain all expended on long rests. And you can also, importantly, and I like that they're including this clarification, you can use any spell slots you have to cast a spell. It doesn't have to be specifically the one type to this, which in previous cases it has been.
We've seen that trend over the past like couple of years, which is a direction I'm glad they're going in. Just mechanically, it makes sense that if you can do it once, you can do it again with additional spell slots.
Yeah. And then with rock gnome, you know mending and prestidigitation, which are both very solid. Like I like mending. I don't think mending gets enough credit.
Yeah.
In addition, this is really cool. It's like small, but I like it. I just like because it's like the tinkery kind of like I make loads of like small little dimensions thing. But in addition, you can spend 10 minutes casting prestidigitation to create a tiny clockwork device, AC 5, 1 HP, such as a toy, a fire starter, or a music box. That's so cool. I love that the kind of like little tinkerer, inventor kind of type thing.
You don't have this already, no?
I think they had something similar, but I still
maybe this is more fleshed out.
Yeah. So I cast it. It takes 10 gold pieces to cast the spell in that way, but you do, and that's to represent material costs, and they specifically like strings, gears, and the like. So just like you just cobble together a bunch of like this is your MacGyver. You just cobble together a bunch of random crap and you make a noisemaker. But you get that back, which is nice. It's a nice little thing. And then you basically choose one effect made by prestidigitation to replicate with that thing. And you can have 3 of those in existence at a time, and each one dismantles itself after 8 hours. And you can also touch it and dismantle it as an action, and that's when you get at any time it's dismantled. That's when you get the 10 gold pieces back. Let's see here. I don't.
That's an update on that. They did already have that ability, but it looks like they've refined the language and done a bit more clarification and stuff on it.
Yeah, a lot of this changes to stuff is like smoothing out and like quality of life and like
exactly
massively substantial, but just like good changes.
Agreed.
Halfling. Do you want to take halfling or should I?
I'll go. Yeah. Halfling is honestly straightforward enough. Except that similarly they have rolled stout and lightfoot into the same thing. Again, honestly fine with that. I've always found the distinction between the two of them to be in my homebrew world, they're like the stout halflings are like the halflings that are like settled, and the lightfoot halflings are the nomadic halflings. But again, I never felt like they were overtly different. But lightfoot has the naturally stealthy thing. Stout has the resilience to poison. We don't have the resilience to poison. This is actually essentially just a lightfoot. Looks like the stout is more or less kind of gone.
Yeah.
Brave, you'd advantage on saving throws against being frightened. That was already there. Happy nimbleness, you can move to a space of a creature one size larger than you. Lucky, when you roll a 1 on a d20 of a d20 test, there it is again, you can re-roll the die, must choose a new one, and naturally stealthy. Honestly, very straightforward. Not a whole lot to the halfling updates. But also, like, I never felt like halfling were a particularly flawed ancestry that needed a lot of improvement.
They were always pretty solid.
And people like playing hobbits, so
yeah.
People always play them anyway.
I can hear the Tolkien estate coming, Conor. You can't call it anymore.
I don't care.
Yeah. Oh my god, I am such a big fan of the orc changes. Oh my god, the orc changes are awesome. And I find it hilarious that it was halfling and following on their heels are orcs.
Yeah, true, actually, yeah. You go.
So yeah, orcs, humanoid, and they're, again, you only have the medium size, so it's 6 to 7 feet tall, 30 feet of speed, 80 years lifespan. Where it gets really cool and all the new stuff is Adrenaline Rush, which was an ability they had previously, but it functioned differently, I believe.
Yeah, so I think previously it used to be that you could take a bonus action to dash as long as you move in the direction of another creature.
It was an enemy specifically, I believe, wasn't it?
Specifically an enemy, yeah.
Yeah. Now you can take the dash action as a bonus action, which is sick. When you do so, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to proficiency bonus, which is also really sick. And then you can use that proficiency times a day, and you gain all your uses of it back in long rest. So by 20th level, you can do this 6 times a day.
Yeah, that's really cool. And honestly, that ability, because when it was the you could dash, but you have to dash towards your enemy, that was so indicative of a melee fighter, martial character, which is very kind of like pigeonholy for orcs. But now it's like, you can dash anytime, and if you're dashing and get a temp HP bonus because you're charging in, that's great. But if you're dashing to get away from something, you could do with the extra temp HP. So it functions whether you're trying to dash through a dangerous room and you need the extra HP, whether you're dashing to get away from something and you need to stay conscious and not have dropped to 0 hit points, or whether you're dashing and getting temp HP because you're going to get hit because you're charging right up on this monster. It's got way more versatility, and it doesn't specify to orcs as strictly aggressive characters and stuff like that as well. Aggressive savage characters and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then the rest of the orc stuff is pretty much the same as it was previously. You've got dark. Did orcs have dark vision before? I think
orcs had dark vision.
Yeah. Okay, so you have dark vision. You have your power, so you can see in dark. Range of 60 feet. Only they don't get quite as OP as some of the other ones with their dark vision with the elves. Powerful builds.
No.
So you count as one size larger for your standard push, pull, drag, lift. And then relentless endurance. Similarly, again, when you reduce the hero 0 hit points but not outright killed, you can come back to at 1 hit point instead, and you can only use this once per long rest, which is another interesting one. Well, I understand why, because that's a very powerful ability. But if they could do that any more, that would be stepping on the toes of the barbarian ability. I think that was.
Yeah, exactly. And an interesting point to make about the orcs, they had a very interesting development history in 5e, because with the half orc we originally got in the 2014 book, that half orc was a good class. It was actually a very good class to play there, or that class race at the time. Now Ancestry. We're calling it Ancestry. Technically, Wizards are still calling it race, but yeah. I'm doing the survey this evening, Mark. God help me. But yeah, so they were a mechanically solid one to play. There was a lot of problematic language with regards to them and how it represented their people.
There were some troubling implications.
Yeah, exactly. So now, so we had them. Then we got the orc, and the full blood orc, if you will, in Volo's Guide, which was the only race at the time and since that had a negative stat modifier as part of its race, which is a -1 to intelligence. Yeah. Then it was either in Eberron, definitely in Wildmount, possibly in Eberron as well. They basically republished that exact same orc from Volo's Guide, but just without the -1 ability. And now, in the most recent version of orcs we got, I can't remember when. I want to say maybe, was that in Mordenkainen's? We got a more recent version because they didn't, for a long time, full blood orcs for some reason didn't have relentless endurance, which to me was
like, where did the half orcs get it from?
Yeah, exactly. That seemed like the most orc kind of thing you could think. And then then they got it, and in the most recent review of the orc got that as well as powerful build and a bunch of other stuff. And at a certain point, it's like there is basically no difference at this point between a half orc and an orc. So let's just call them orcs. Yeah. Which, if you don't mind me taking a quick tangent, because I know we got about 15 minutes odd left.
Go ahead.
So this is an interesting thing, because half orcs and half elves no longer appear in this list. We'll get on to the final one in a minute, which is tieflings.
Yes.
Half orcs and half elves no longer appear in the list of base races, because they are redesigning how these we'll call them dual ancestry race or peoples work.
Mixed ancestry.
Mixed ancestry. Yeah, and that is that. Basically, you can play any combination of anything. Where you might have an elven parent and a gnomish parent, or you might have a human parent and an orc parent.
I want to do a tiefling Aasimar combo where
would be metal as fuck.
Where you have like one horn that comes out and like, oh god,
there's a guy. Have you ever seen Sky High? This is such a damn tangent. Have you ever seen Sky High?
Hang on. No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a superhero. It's a really cheesy teen superhero movie about a floating high school where all the superheroes kids go. Because
Oh,
obviously, when superheroes have kids with other superheroes, they all have
there's
powers.
a really obvious anime reference for this. A little bit. Go ahead.
So they go to the school,
Mm.
and the kind of like angsty leather jacket
I'm
wearing
literally
bad boy.
looking at this lad right now. I googled Sky High. I
What
can see him.
what's his name, Martin? Can you see his name?
1 second. Where is the
His,
cast?
I want to set this up. His dad is a super villain, and his mom is a superhero. And what's his name?
1 second. I'm scrolling through the. War and Peace.
His name is Warren Peace. I immediately thought of that when you were like, I would have played ASMR Tiefling, and I'm like, that's like Warren Peace, because that's where my mind goes to the I don't know what that is, like 2012 movie.
And yeah,
No,
oh god, no.
no, way old. You know, the 2004 maybe.
Maybe 2005.
Ah, so close.
Yeah. No,
Um,
but I had a
yeah,
when I thought of that there, I just had a vision in my head of like this like golden haired, like pure pale skinned, like ASMR type look. But then they've like got one horn like popping out red, like proper ram curling horn. They've got like one black, but what like one red eye or something, and like a fang here. Or like Malekith in Thor. Not the terrible movie, but the actual comic book character was really really cool. Yeah, it's oh god, it's cool. Sorry, go on. Sorry, I entirely. And the other really obvious rare thing was the man from My Hero Academia who's half fire, half ice.
I've not seen it, but I will trust you.
He's
That's
literally
a
got
reference.
white hair and red hair, and
Oh, okay.
he's got like a Zuko scar, and on his left side is because they all superpowers called quirks, and like his
Yeah,
dad had the strongest or like one of the strongest, or I think it might have been the strongest fire quirk, so he intentionally found a woman with an ice quirk, so he could have a
right.
kid, that because if he uses his fire powers too much, he basically overheats, so he intentionally had a child with a woman with ice powers, and
It
kept
was
having kids with
balanced.
her until he had a kid. It's kind of messed up. Until he had a kid who, that's part of the story. Until he had a kid who was half hot, half cold, and this guy called
Yeah,
Todoroki, and he can use crazy ice powers with his left hand and like fire with his right.
that's pretty cool. So there is this little text box, gray text box
Mm.
called "Children of Different Humanoid Kinds," um, and basically what they say. And I should really preface this because been a lot of talk about this online. The language to this super isn't 100% there.
Yeah.
There's still some phrasings about how they talk about these people of like mixed heritage and stuff like
Mm.
that, and it doesn't come out 100% great. It's not terrible, and I definitely feel like the inclusion of this, where we can have people and characters in this world who have parents of different ancestries, is a big step in the right direction. Just not 100% there quite. But anyway, mechanically, the way it works is that you pick your two races. You know, your mother and your father and whatever, you know, and you basically just choose one of the mechanical stat blocks for them. So if you want to do orc elf, you can literally be like, I'm just going to pick an orc stat block. That's the stat block I'm using. But physically, my character looks like like a regular looking elf. He's quite broad maybe, and he has like like very very small tusks. But that's it. Other than that, he looks like an elf with pointed ears and blonde hair and stuff like that. So you can mix and match they actually say here you can mix and match visual characteristics, color, ear shape, and the like of those two options. For example, if your character is a halfling and gnome parent, you might have choose halfling for your game traits, and then decide that your character has the pointed ears that are characteristic of a gnome. And then they also say finally you determine the average age of your lifespan just by adding the two together and taking the average. So if you have an elf that lives to be 800, and then you have an orc that lives to be about 100 odd, then your character would live to be approximately 400 and something.
A dragonborn orc would be really cool.
The dragonborn orc would be very cool. But yeah, so that's again, I do feel like this is it's a really good step. It's a really solid improvement on the representation of ancestries and stuff in D&D. Again, it's not perfect, and I do feel that, you know, maybe maybe for this game where we roll dice and pretend to be fictional characters and cast spells out of our hands and all these goofy things that we do, maybe we're not going to solve the issue of like heritage in the real world through this medium.
Yeah.
But it's still, I do still think that this is a positive, even if it's not 100% on the money.
Yeah.
It is a positive move in the right direction.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, do you want to do Tiefling?
Yeah, Tiefling I think will end up being our final one for this video as well, I'd say.
Yeah. Remember at the start of the video, we were like, we won't have time to go through all these races, and then we just went through all the races.
Yeah, we just did.
I just restarted.
There's a lot of cool stuff in this.
There is a lot of cool stuff.
And we're even condensing a lot of it. It's just we're also getting stuck on tangents, and we spent 20 minutes talking about Lord of the Rings.
But Martin, Sky High is just such a good movie.
War and Peace!
War and Peace!
Okay, sorry, we'll get back to these. So Tieflings, so very much the same kind of like lower background where your origins come from the lower planes. You've got some kind of demonic blood in you, and they've done the same thing as all the others, but they've got, instead of like all the various different versions you could have outside of I believe it's Mordenkainen, the Mordenkainen, it'll be the Monsters of Multiverse, but the original, the OG Mordenkainen's book. That has the stuff about the blood war between the demons and the devils and all that in it. But you have three basic legacies, is what they're calling them. For a tiefling, you have abyssal, chthonic, and infernal. In abyssal tieflings, the heartless entropy of the abyss, the howling chaos of pandemonium, and the vast despair of Carcerai, call to tieflings who have the abyssal fiendish legacy. Horns, fur, tusks, black blood, and peculiar odors are common physical features of such tieflings. I assume they mean like you smell like brimstone, but I heard that and I was like, geez, you smell like shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I would think like you smell like smoke or smell like brimstone or something like that.
Or sulfur.
Or sulfur. Doesn't brimstone smell like
sulfur? Like
bad eggs or whatever?
Yeah, that's sulfur.
It's ideally should probably smell like smoke.
Yeah, really. It'd be cool. Yeah, do you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get into it because that's just me spiraling off into another tangent. We don't have much time.
Okay.
But yeah, they specifically call out most of and peculiar orders, common physical features amongst such tieflings, most of whom have the blood of demons coursing through their veins. Then we have chthonic tieflings. Chthonic tieflings are tieflings who have chthonic fiendish legacy, but not only feel the tug of Carcerai, but also the greed of Gehenna and the underworld gloom of Hades. Some of these tieflings look cadaverous, others possess the unearthly beauty of an incubus or a succubus, or they have physical features in common with a night hag, Yugoloth, or some other neutral evil fiendish ancestor. It reminds me, Yugoloth, those are like the fox demons, right?
They're one of them, yeah. They're basically the neutral fiends that are like mercenaries in the war between devils and demons. Yeah, some look like foxes. One of them has a guy with like a really big hand and one tiny hand. One of them looks like just
one of them are like
a really disgusting warty
insectoidish almost. Yeah.
One is insectoidish. Yeah, there's a fox one. There's one that looks straight up like an alien. Like it looks like Abe from Abe's Oddworld. Like
I like that. Particularly when they call out, you can be like, you could look like a night hag or something like that. I like that they're kind of giving you extra things to queue off there. And then you have the infernal, which is very much your traditional tiefling. Is the infernal fiendish legacy binds tieflings by blood not only to Gehenna, but also the raging battlefields of Acheron and the diabolical nine hells, horns, spines, tails, golden eyes, and a faint odor of sulfur. So if these guys smell like sulfur, what do the other lads smell like? I never thought I'd be asking that question. What has D&D done to my life?
What does my D&D character smell like?
Oh, mine probably like ale and old leather.
I was honestly going to say for Lug, probably BO. Lug looks like he exercises a lot but doesn't necessarily hit the showers. He'll hit the showers when he gets a chance, but it's not top of his priority list.
I wish I could argue. But yes, those are the most common. I do like that they have golden eyes. It's really cool. And then tiefling, and that's going to be their tiefling traits. Then, jeez, I almost forgot about that. So very similar. Nicely for if you want to be a short king tiefling, you can be a small tiefling. You don't have just have to be medium. 30 feet of speed, 100-year lifespan on average, which is pretty nice. Yeah, I'm going to sneeze in like the next 30 seconds. I'm going to do my best to not get it right into the mic and blow everyone's ears out. But it's going to happen. Apologies. You have dark vision, fiendish legacy, which are your three, the abyssal, chthonic, and infernal. And I'll get onto them in just a second because they have a similar setup to the way elves have. And then you have otherworldly presence, thaumaturgy, and you can cast that, which is something you always kind of had as a tiefling, I believe. Thaumaturgy
Yeah,
is
they
always
specify in a similar way to other abilities that it's tied to whatever ability score you choose for it, basically. So if you're, because previously I think it was charisma, but if you're playing wizard, you can now choose to have it be tied to your intelligence. Not that it matters a whole lot for thaumaturgy, I don't think.
No,
but,
not really. But it's still
yeah.
nice. But yes, so where the Fiendish legacies get into things mechanically rather than just aesthetically, as they kind of were described there. For if you're Abyssal Legacy at first level, you have resistance to poison damage, and you also know poison spray. At third level, you get Ray of Sickness, and at fifth level, you get Hold Person. The Chthonic,
cool.
like tanky tieflings, because you have fire resistance and poison resistance, two of the most common damage types in the game.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't carry. No, you don't get fire.
Oh, sorry.
Fire is specifically part of the infernal.
That's
one.
like there's like three different versions of tiefling fighting it out in my memory right now for which one's got to come out.
Yeah, there's a lot. There was like a regular tiefling, then the flying tiefling came out by itself, and then the other like 8 tieflings that are part of the subplanes came out by themselves, and then we have this tiefling now. So we've got a lot of tieflings.
For Chthonic, you have resistance to necrotic damage. You also know Chill Touch. At third level, you get False Life, and at fifth level, you get Ray of Enfeeblement. For Infernal, resistance to fire damage, your traditional tiefling resistances, and you also know Firebolt, which is useful. I think that's really cool if you want to play like a melee tiefling. You now have like a spell range option, which is pretty useful.
Just to have in your back pocket, yeah. Absolutely.
And then you have the traditional Hellish Rebuke and Darkness spells that normally come along with your tiefling ancestry. As it's written now. I'm actually like a really big fan of tiefling. Like I always like tieflings. Tieflings are pretty metal. Who doesn't want to be demon blood? Like it's pretty cool. But like very very much like there's not. I suppose they are kind of big changes, but like they haven't like completely rewrote the book on tiefling. Everything they've changed feels very much in the spirit of what a tiefling is and what it has been previously. It's just kind of more streamlined and smoothed down.
I would say that for all of these things, to be honest, I think all of them are. All the changes that they've had to all of these ancestries now is like they're not, like you said, they're not rewriting the book. It's more like they're reshuffling the book. It's like a lot of the stuff we see here has already been there. It's just been there in a different order or part of a sub-race or like a sub-race or whatever, and now they're just consolidating those into into more set ancestries, but giving you options within those set ancestries, which I think is cool. I like that you can have tiefling that it has either poison, necrotic, or fire resistance. Fire resistance is always great. It's one of the most common damage types, but so is poison. And the necrotic is just cool to be like resistant to necrotic.
You cannot kill me.
I am death.
Oh god, it's so cool. I'm like a really big fan of a lot of these changes, and particularly some of the more significant ones. Like generally speaking, with all of these ancestry changes and stuff like that.
Martin, quick one for you. So
okay,
of what we've covered today, which is mostly the races, the ancestries, I should say. I'll get there, guys. It's just I've been saying this language for like 8 years, so I'm going to unprogram myself. For what we've seen of all these today, what is your favorite one, and what is your least favorite one?
Okay, I'm gonna say my least favorite first because it's one of the ones where I don't really understand where it fits in, and I think you're gonna be able to guess, and it's the Ardling.
Also my least favorite.
Yeah, and
again, not because there's anything wrong with it, but just because I feel like it's already ticking some boxes that we already had ticked.
I nearly feel like you could have made that a fourth celestial revelation for Aasimar.
Exactly. Yeah, very easily, or like it could have been. I don't know. It could have been some other form of higher celestial blooded being, but now instead it's kind of like, it just feels like everything about it is, we have 3 versions of it. One that's good, like chaotic good, neutral good. I suppose actually, do you know what I think about it? I suppose when you look at the way the Aasimar were previously, you had the Protector, which was like the lawful good, and then you had the Scourge, which was like
chaotic good.
Kind of chaotic neutral almost. Yeah. And then you have what was the last one then?
That is the
Fallen, which was kind of like the dark or evil version then. So I guess if the Ardlings are like, if we're looking at the circle, that is the planes, if the Ardlings spread across there are all the good, and then the Tieflings spread all down here, then the Aasimar form kind of a line down the middle where it's like good, neutral, evil.
Yeah, they're not even necessarily evil either. It's more like it's more so if you want to be.
Well, yeah, but it's more so that's what their ancestry was, or they kind of come from that. So yeah, I don't know, maybe
yeah.
I feel like that's maybe it, but
yeah. So
it's very much I just don't get it. I don't see it. It steps on the toes of the other anthropomorphic races that are in the game that already take on some of these forms. It takes a lot of stuff from
I'm confused
the Aasimar, but not nearly as well.
I'm confused why they didn't put in like for the Ardlings. I'm going to get onto answering the question you actually asked me in a second. But when they mentioned they're from the plains, I was expecting some Coatl thing. Like you could be like an awesome like winged serpent, like.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like there's honestly a bunch of stuff you could have done.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see like some sort of maybe elemental, some sort of like radiant light elemental kind of creature would have been interesting. You know. Then maybe it's a bit more spelljammery, but anyway. So your favorite then?
Oh, the favorite one is a little harder to pick because like dwarves. I really like what they did with dwarves. I really like what they did with elves. And after reading it over again, I actually really like what they did with tieflings. Like tiefling is actually like I'm like, Jesus, is my next character gonna be a tiefling?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, interesting because I've never played a tiefling. Not even in one shots. So I'm very curious. And you know what? It's got to be elves. Just because they got rid of sunlight sensitivity.
Yeah.
It's gotta be elves, and that Drow Gloomstalker with 150 feet of dark vision is nuts. 150 feet of dark
longbow.
Sniper rifle. Sorry,
bolt action then.
Just immediately there turn yourself into like the White Death from World War II, that like Finnish guy who like sniped a ridiculous amount of people.
Yeah. I like I said, I think the Ardling, just because I don't see the piece doesn't fit neatly in with the puzzle of what D&D is right now. My two favorites, and partially mechanically, one so dwarf is my top. Very close behind is orc, and for the reasons that they are both mechanically very sound. I love the stone cutting ability, but also because if I was going to write a list of all the stuff I want to keep for dwarves, this would be it. If I was to look at the two dwarves that we had, Mountain and Hill, and I'm like, what do I want to keep out of this? This is a 1-for-1 of what I would have chosen to keep, and I would have ditched the other stuff.
I would add one thing to dwarves.
What?
Bagpipe proficiency.
Bagpipe proficiency, yeah. And also the reason I like them as well is because my in my homebrew world, I was struggling to make half orcs and orcs as a culture, and I would just be like, no, they're all orcs now. It's all orcs. Let's just go. And then also dwarves. Again, I always found the difference between hill and mountain to be very arbitrary. Yeah. So, but I still divided them up. Like my mountain dwarves do this, and my hill dwarves do this, and now I'm like, no, they're just dwarves, and it's just two separate cultures within the same ancestry.
Yeah.
Which it just fits completely by accident, but it fits really nicely into my homebrew world, so that's why I like it.
No, that's
but Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That is all the time we have for today.
Nice. So after saying we wouldn't get into the race, we basically did the ancestry salary. We did a very, well, not very in depth, but we did a fairly decent, like detailed breakdown of the changes and stuff like that. I think we're going to continue this discussion into next week's episode, where we're going to be talking about the backgrounds, the feats associated with the backgrounds, and as well, I think some of the rule changes, and specifically some of the wording of the rule changes. We're probably going to get some spicy takes as well. I would imagine, but I'm very much looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
Same. Realistically, by the time we're done talking about this on the podcast, the next UA will probably be. I don't know. I think it's actually October or something like that. So we have a while.
We have some time. Yeah, we got some
time. So if you have any stories like us to share, topics you would like us to cover, or stories like us to share, topics like us to cover. That's it. Yeah, I'm still getting back into it. Please tweet us at Micflayers Pod on Twitter. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Republic. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over. Also on the podcast Twitter, I can't mention it, at Micflayers Pod, both of which should be in the bottom right-hand corners of the screen or in our windows underneath our names. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor. Pt.1, very important. I remember this week.
Yes.
And other than that, you can find me every Friday here on the Micflayers podcast, 6 p.m. Irish time on all the aforementioned platforms. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited about all these changes coming to D&D and to see what else they kind of have in the upcoming UAs as well. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you all have a nice weekend.
It's good to be back. We'll see you later. Bye bye.